New at 10 tonight, those living in an RV community in a San Francisco neighborhood are up against the clock. A deadline to leave the area is less than 2 hours away. And this is the second time in a matter of weeks that they've been ordered to move.
More than half of Americans over 60 cannot afford rent anymore. Social Security averages under $2,000 a month, while housing costs keep climbing. This is how retirees end up living in parking lots, quietly, invisibly, until something breaks. RV homelessness has transformed from a lifestyle choice into a survival strategy for hundreds of thousands of Americans. What once represented retirement freedom now signals housing failure. National homelessness counts reported over 650,000 unhoused people in 2024, the highest number ever recorded. This figure dramatically undercounts vehicle dwellers, as RV residents are often excluded unless parked in visible encampments. Municipal studies estimate 300,000 to 500,000 people now live full-time or part-time in vehicles, including RVs, vans, and converted buses. RVs are chosen over cars because they provide insulation, beds, toilets, and the ability to survive extreme temperatures. These features become critical when shelters are full or unsafe. Rents have increased 30 to 40% nationally since 2019, while wages for fixed-income populations have barely moved. In over 50% of U.S. counties, seniors living on Social Security alone cannot afford a one-bedroom apartment at fair market rent. RVs become the only remaining asset people can actually live inside. This shift represents structural failure, not personal choice. RV homelessness grows quietly because it exists in a gray zone between housed and unhoused. People remain invisible until laws change, vehicles are towed, or weather turns deadly. By 2026, RV homelessness is no longer emerging. It is entrenched, expanding, and increasingly affecting working Americans who never imagined needing a vehicle as permanent shelter. The crisis sits at the intersection of housing inflation, wage stagnation, and policy indifference. Adults over 55 years old are now one of the fastest growing segments of the homeless population. Between 2017 and 2024, homelessness among seniors increased by more than 30%, outpacing growth in any other age group. This trend is expected to accelerate through 2026 as baby boomers age out of the workforce with insufficient retirement savings. The average monthly Social Security benefit is about $1,900, while average rents for a modest one-bedroom apartment exceed $1,500 to $1,800 in many metro areas. That is before utilities, food, or medical costs. One medical emergency, rent hike, or spousal death is often enough to push a senior into vehicle living. Seniors are uniquely vulnerable because they have fewer recovery options. Unlike younger, unhoused individuals, they cannot easily work multiple jobs, relocate quickly, or physically tolerate shelters. Many own an RV outright, making it their last stable possession. Selling it would mean sleeping in a car or on the street. Health conditions compound the crisis. Over 70% of unhoused seniors report at least one chronic illness, and more than 40% report mobility limitations. Living in an RV without reliable power, heating or cooling dramatically, increases risks of hypothermia, heat stroke, and medication failure. RV homelessness among seniors is not temporary displacement. Once entered, it often becomes permanent. Re-entry into the housing market at senior age is statistically rare. The economic and physical barriers are too high to overcome. For most seniors, RV homelessness begins with a housing disruption, not wanderlust. The most common triggers include rent increases, eviction, foreclosure, divorce, or the death of a spouse. When housing is lost, RVs become a buffer between stability and total street homelessness. Data from eviction courts show that nearly 40% of eviction cases involve households with someone over 50. Once evicted, seniors face discrimination in rental markets due to fixed income, credit damage, or medical debt. Waiting lists for senior housing often exceed 2 to 5 years, far longer than most can manage without shelter. RVs allow seniors to preserve independence and dignity. They can lock a door, cook food, sleep safely, and avoid crowded shelters. However, this stability is fragile. Fuel costs, repairs, registration fees, and insurance quickly erode limited savings. A single mechanical failure can render the RV unlivable overnight. Contrary to public perception, many seniors living in RVs were previously homeowners. Rising property taxes, insurance premiums, and maintenance costs forced sales. After selling, proceeds are often insufficient to re-enter today's housing market. RV living is not cheaper housing. It is delayed displacement. Seniors are using RVs to buy time in a system where affordable housing no longer exists for them. By 2026, this stopgap is failing as costs rise and tolerance disappears. The buffer between stability and street homelessness is growing thinner every month. One of the most dangerous aspects of RV homelessness is how poorly it is tracked. Federal homelessness counts rely heavily on shelter usage and visible street encampments. Seniors living quietly in RVs are often categorized as housed or excluded entirely from counts. Point-in-time counts happen once per year and frequently instruct volunteers not to engage with people inside vehicles unless visibly distressed. This results in massive undercounting. Studies comparing point-in-time data with municipal parking records suggest vehicle homelessness may be underreported by 30 to 60%. This data gap has real consequences. Funding for housing, healthcare outreach, and emergency services is allocated based on official counts. If RV-dwelling seniors are invisible statistically, they are invisible politically. Local governments often only recognize RV homelessness when complaints spike or enforcement begins. By then, the population has already grown large and unstable. The absence of reliable data allows officials to frame the issue as isolated rather than systemic. Without accurate tracking, policymakers underestimate how many seniors are living one breakdown away from disaster. RV homelessness is expanding beneath the surface, unmeasured, untreated, and unprepared for. Only when winter storms, heat waves, or mass towing events expose the scale of the crisis does the invisibility break. By that point, emergency response replaces prevention. The lack of data is not accidental. It allows the crisis to grow without accountability or political pressure for solutions. Living in an RV without consistent power, heating, or cooling is especially dangerous for older adults. Seniors are more susceptible to temperature extremes, dehydration, and respiratory stress. In recent years, heat waves and cold snaps have become more frequent and more lethal. Between 2021 and 2024, extreme heat caused over 2,300 deaths annually, with adults over 60 representing the majority. RVs amplify these risks. Thin walls, failing insulation, and limited ventilation can turn RVs into ovens in summer and refrigerators in winter. Many RV-dwelling seniors ration power or fuel, leading to skipped treatments. Emergency room data shows that unhoused seniors are 3 times more likely to require hospitalization during extreme weather events. Access to healthcare is another barrier. Many seniors living in RVs lack a fixed address, complicating insurance, prescription refills, and follow-up care. Mobile seniors may avoid hospitals due to fear of losing their vehicle while admitted. These risks are not hypothetical. Winter storms, heat waves, and blackouts are turning RV homelessness into a silent mortality crisis. For seniors, RV living is not just unstable, it is medically unsustainable. By 2026, survival increasingly depends on weather, luck, and remaining physical resilience. Every extreme weather event becomes a test that some seniors will not survive. Across the United States, cities are rapidly tightening vehicle ordinances that directly affect seniors living in RVs. These include overnight parking bans, time-limited parking rules, vehicle size restrictions, and zoning exclusions that make it illegal to exist in large vehicles outside RV parks. By 2026, over 150 U.S. cities have enacted or expanded such restrictions. For seniors, these laws are devastating. An RV that cannot legally park overnight anywhere becomes useless as shelter. Violations typically carry fines ranging from $50 to $500 per incident, compounding quickly for people living on fixed incomes. After multiple citations, vehicles are flagged for towing. Many municipalities justify enforcement as neighborhood safety or sanitation, yet provide no alternative legal parking. RV parks often cost $900 to $1,500 per month, far exceeding what Social Security recipients can afford. Wait lists for subsidized RV safe lots frequently exceed 6 to 12 months, if they exist at all. The legal pressure forces constant movement. Seniors report relocating 3 to 7 times per week. increasing fuel costs, stress, and mechanical failure risk. Constant displacement also disrupts access to healthcare, food banks, and social services. These laws do not reduce homelessness, they destabilize it. Seniors are not refusing housing. Housing is refusing them. Enforcement converts poverty into a legal violation, accelerating physical decline and pushing older adults closer to street homelessness. For an RV-dwelling senior, towing is not a parking penalty. It is catastrophic loss. When an RV is impounded, the owner loses housing, transportation, medication, documents, and personal belongings in one event. Tow and storage fees typically range from $1,500 to $5,000, an impossible sum for someone surviving on under $2,000 per month. Data from West Coast cities shows that over 60% of towed RV owners never recover their vehicle. Once the storage fees exceed the RV's value, cities auction or scrap them. For seniors, this often marks the permanent transition from vehicle living to sidewalk homelessness. After towing, seniors often lose eligibility for benefits due to missed appointments or documentation gaps. Medical risk spikes sharply. Emergency departments report increased admissions among newly unsheltered seniors within 30 days of vehicle loss. Mortality risk increases as well, especially during extreme weather. Towing policies treat RVs as nuisances, not lifelines. For seniors, losing an RV is not inconvenience. It is existential erasure. Once taken, recovery is rare. The system offers punishment first and assistance later, if at all. The gap between enforcement and support is where people disappear. RV-dwelling seniors are trapped by math. Even when they do everything right, the numbers do not work. Average senior income is about $23,000 per year, while average rents require $55,000 to $65,000 in annual income to qualify. This gap cannot be bridged with budgeting or discipline. Affordable housing supply for seniors is critically low. Only 1 in 4 income-eligible seniors receives any form of housing assistance. Public housing waitlists average 2 to 5 years, with many lists closed entirely. Emergency vouchers are rare and short-term. Meanwhile, RV costs continue rising. Insurance premiums, registration fees, and repairs have increased 20 to 40% since 2020. Fuel prices fluctuate wildly, and older RVs are increasingly expensive to maintain. One transmission failure or roof leak can cost $4,000 to $10,000, instantly wiping out savings. Many assistance programs require a permanent address, online applications, or repeated in-person visits. These are barriers for mobile seniors. Some housing programs also require surrendering the RV, removing the only shelter seniors currently have while waiting. The system assumes homelessness is temporary. For seniors, it is often permanent. Without structural intervention, RV living becomes a holding pattern until health fails or enforcement intervenes. The economic trap is not a temporary obstacle. It is the new normal for hundreds of thousands of older Americans. RV-dwelling seniors experience extreme social isolation, a factor proven to increase mortality risk. Studies show that chronic loneliness raises the risk of early death by 25 to 30%, comparable to smoking or obesity. For seniors without stable housing, isolation is constant. Many avoid family contact out of shame. Others have outlived spouses, friends, or support networks. Living in an RV often means parking away from communities, avoiding attention, and keeping a low profile to prevent enforcement. This invisibility deepens isolation. Lack of social connection worsens cognitive decline, depression, and anxiety. Mental health services are difficult to access without a fixed address. Over 40% of unhoused seniors report untreated depression, and many ration medications or skip care entirely. Isolation also increases vulnerability to crime. Seniors living alone in RVs are frequent targets for theft and harassment, yet are less likely to report incidents due to fear of police involvement or towing. Human connection is a protective factor, but RV homelessness strips it away. Seniors are surviving physically while deteriorating socially and mentally. By the time help arrives, damage is often irreversible. The combination of physical instability, legal pressure, and social disconnection creates a downward spiral. Each factor reinforces the others. Isolation makes health worse. Health decline increases isolation, and both make housing recovery nearly impossible. The psychological damage of RV homelessness often outlasts the physical conditions. Safe parking programs allow people living in vehicles to park legally overnight with access to restrooms, security, and social services. When available, they reduce police interactions, hospital visits, and stress. However, nationwide capacity is severely limited. Most programs serve 20 to 100 vehicles, while local RV dwelling populations often exceed 1,000 or more. Eligibility rules frequently exclude larger RVs, older vehicles, couples, or people with pets, disqualifying many seniors. Average stays are limited to 30 to 90 days, far shorter than the time needed to secure housing. Funding is inconsistent. Many programs rely on short-term grants, leaving seniors displaced again when funding ends. Some cities advertise safe parking as a solution while expanding enforcement elsewhere, creating a net zero effect. Despite these limits, outcomes are clear. Participants are more likely to access healthcare, maintain benefits, and stabilize. The problem is scale. Safe parking is treated as an experiment, not infrastructure. By 2026, the gap between need and availability continues to widen. Without expansion, safe parking remains a pressure valve, not a solution, for senior RV homelessness. The political reality is harsh. Safe parking works, but it requires funding, land, and political will. Cities prefer enforcement because it appears cheaper in the short term. The long-term costs, medical crises, emergency response, and mortality are diffused and ignored. Healthcare access collapses rapidly once seniors lose stable housing. RV-dwelling seniors are far less likely to maintain regular primary care, manage chronic disease, or attend follow-up appointments. Studies show unhoused seniors are 2.5 times more likely to be hospitalized for preventable conditions than housed seniors. Lack of a fixed address disrupts insurance enrollment, prescription delivery, and specialist referrals. Many pharmacies restrict controlled or refrigerated medications without stable contact information. Seniors living in RVs often ration insulin, heart medication, or inhalers to extend supply, dramatically increasing risk of stroke, heart failure, and respiratory emergencies. Emergency rooms become the default healthcare provider. ER visits cost 5 to 10 times more than preventive care, yet municipalities continue funding enforcement over healthcare outreach. Medicare covers treatment but not stability, creating a loop of crisis care without resolution. Mobile clinics and outreach programs exist, but reach only a fraction of RV-dwelling seniors. In many counties, fewer than 1 in 10 unhoused seniors have consistent healthcare contact. As a result, manageable conditions escalate into life-threatening events. By 2026, healthcare systems are absorbing the cost of housing failure, treating symptoms instead of causes. RV homelessness is not just a housing crisis. It is a slow-motion public health collapse disproportionately harming older Americans. The healthcare system is built for people with addresses, insurance continuity, and stability. RV-dwelling seniors have none of these. Where a senior lives or parks can determine whether they survive homelessness. RV homelessness is heavily concentrated in coastal and Sunbelt states, where mild climates once offered protection. However, these same regions now face aggressive enforcement, overcrowding, and climate extremes. States like California, Arizona, Florida, and Texas host some of the largest RV-dwelling populations, yet also experience record heat waves, floods, and hurricanes. Heat-related deaths among seniors have increased over 60% since 2018 in several metro areas. Rural regions offer fewer enforcement pressures, but lack healthcare access, safe parking, and emergency services. Response times can exceed 30 to 60 minutes, fatal during medical emergencies. Winter exposure risks are also higher without shelter infrastructure. Urban areas provide services but impose strict parking rules. Suburbs often ban overnight parking entirely. Seniors are forced into constant movement, choosing between enforcement risk and environmental danger. Geography has become a survival lottery. There is no safe zone, only trade-offs. By 2026, climate instability and policy fragmentation mean seniors must navigate a hostile map where every option carries life-threatening risk. The ideal location, mild climate, legal parking, healthcare access, and community support does not exist. Seniors migrate constantly, searching for the least dangerous combination. Each move costs fuel, increases stress, and accelerates vehicle deterioration. Geography is not just context, it is fate. RV homelessness among seniors does not occur in isolation. Families often provide intermittent support, phone plans, storage, occasional money, but cannot provide housing. Over 40% of adult children report being unable to house aging parents due to cost, space, or lease restrictions. This creates emotional strain across generations. Seniors delay asking for help to avoid burdening family. Children experience guilt and stress watching parents deteriorate. Grandchildren lose stable relationships as elders become transient. Communities also absorb indirect costs. Libraries, hospitals, and emergency services become de facto support systems. Municipalities spend millions annually on enforcement, cleanup, and emergency response, far exceeding the cost of prevention. Despite this, public discourse often frames RV homelessness as nuisance rather than failure. The burden is diffused across families, nonprofits, and frontline workers, never centralized enough to trigger systemic reform. The crisis persists because its pain is fragmented. By the time consequences are visible, damage has already spread across households and communities, silently reshaping the social fabric. Families are not choosing to abandon seniors. They are being forced to by housing markets that exclude multi-generational living. Zoning laws, apartment lease restrictions, and mortgage requirements make it illegal or financially impossible for adult children to house aging parents. The crisis is systemic, but the guilt is personal. Senior RV homelessness is not a static problem. It is being refueled every year by demographics and economics. Roughly 4 million Americans turn 65 annually, yet nearly 48% of adults approaching retirement have no savings beyond Social Security. That means millions are aging into a system that requires cash reserves they simply do not have. Housing costs are the main trigger. Since 2020, rents have risen 30 to 45% nationally, while Social Security cost of living adjustments have failed to keep pace with housing inflation. At the same time, property taxes, homeowners insurance, and medical premiums have surged. Seniors who once owned homes are being pushed out through foreclosure, tax delinquency, or forced sales after spousal death. The U.S. already faces a shortage of over 7 million affordable housing units, and senior-specific housing represents one of the largest gaps. In many states, waitlists for subsidized senior housing exceed 3 to 6 years, assuming lists are even open. Most seniors entering RV living will not survive long enough to reach the top. Every year, this pipeline grows. Each economic shock, medical debt, rent hikes, insurance cancellations feeds new seniors into vehicle living. Without upstream intervention, RV homelessness among seniors will continue rising regardless of enforcement. The system is not clogged, it is wide open. If current trends continue, senior homelessness will deepen into a mortality crisis. Research consistently shows that unhoused seniors have a life expectancy 10 to 15 years shorter than their housed peers. Once a senior loses stable housing, health decline accelerates rapidly. Emergency room usage among unhoused seniors is already 2 to 3 times higher than average, yet ER care treats symptoms, not stability. Cities spend millions responding to medical crises, police calls, and sanitation, often more per person per year than permanent housing would cost. Enforcement policies will intensify. As RV numbers grow, political pressure increases. Cities respond with stricter parking bans, faster towing timelines, and zero-tolerance rules. This pushes seniors from RVs into cars, then into tents. Each step dramatically increases risk of death. Climate trends worsen the outlook. Heat waves, winter storms, and power outages are becoming more frequent. Seniors without shelter or power are the most likely to die during these events. Past disasters show disproportionate senior fatalities, sometimes over 70% of total deaths. Nothing about this trajectory is uncertain. Without policy change, rising deaths among senior RV dwellers are not a possibility. They are the forecast. The only variable is how quickly it happens and whether anyone will be held accountable. Every year without intervention adds thousands more to the count. Senior RV homelessness exposes a systemic breakdown across housing, healthcare, and aging policy. These individuals did not opt out of society. They worked decades, paid into systems, and followed the rules. Yet the systems they funded no longer protect them. The average senior did not fail to plan. They were overtaken by costs that outpaced income. Housing markets excluded fixed incomes. Healthcare costs eroded savings. Policy treated housing as a commodity instead of infrastructure. When seniors adapted by living in RVs, the response was punishment instead of support. Criminalizing survival shifts blame downward while avoiding accountability upward. Fines, towing, and displacement do not solve homelessness. They erase people from view. Data gaps make the crisis easier to ignore, even as deaths rise. This is not about a lack of shelters or charity. It is about structural mismatch. Millions aging into poverty with no affordable housing pathway. RV homelessness is the visible fracture line. By 2026, the question is no longer whether this is a crisis. The question is whether society accepts senior homelessness as normal or confronts it as a failure that demands systemic correction before more people disappear quietly, one vehicle at a time.
Welcome back. The rising cost of housing is surging RV sales in our area. Many people are dumping their homes for one that's on wheels and living a lot cheaper.
But having that RV could come with a huge frustration for many owners.
This just passed, and almost nobody is talking about it. Across the U.S., a quiet shift is happening where RV living has become so cheap in certain states, it barely counts as housing anymore. No rent, no mortgage. In some cases, almost no monthly cost at all. When you see the numbers, you'll understand why people think it has to be a scam, but it isn't. South Dakota offers the cheapest legal cost of existing in America for RV living. Establishing residency requires just one overnight stay at any campground, RV park, or motel. That single receipt unlocks driver's licenses, vehicle registration, and official domicile status without extensive documentation or waiting periods. The state charges no income tax, no personal property tax on vehicles, and requires no annual vehicle inspections. RV registration fees rank among the nation's lowest, often saving full-timers hundreds of dollars annually compared to high-tax coastal states. Insurance rates drop significantly due to rural density and fewer accident claims, delivering savings of $600 to $1,200 per year. Municipal campgrounds throughout South Dakota charge $10 to $20 nightly, frequently including electrical hookups. Extended stays at publicly owned campgrounds are permitted in many locations, and rural towns often tolerate long-term RV parking provided rigs remain orderly and self-contained. Private rural land leases for boondocking cost $100 to $300 monthly. Healthcare administration becomes notably simpler because mail forwarding services, insurance providers, and DMV offices are specifically structured around RV living. This reduces bureaucratic friction that elsewhere costs time and money. When combined, zero income tax, minimal registration fees, affordable insurance, and inexpensive camping eliminate most fixed housing costs. Full-time RVs find South Dakota financially accessible, not through subsidies or programs, but through systematic removal of regulatory burdens. The state's appeal lies in administrative simplicity rather than scenic attractions. RVs can establish legal residency immediately, maintain it remotely through mail forwarding, and benefit from permanent cost reductions regardless of physical location afterward. This creates financial predictability that nomadic lifestyles otherwise lack. South Dakota proves that affordable RV living emerges when government systems accommodate rather than resist mobile housing. Many describe living here as feeling free because the system barely charges for existence itself. Arkansas combines exceptionally low land costs with America's most affordable public camping infrastructure. Raw land in rural counties sells for $2,000 to $5,000 per acre, making permanent private boondocking financially achievable for RVs seeking stable legal parking. State park campgrounds charge $15 to $25 nightly, commonly including electrical hookups. Monthly rates at smaller RV parks range from $300 to $450, substantially below the national average exceeding $700 monthly. Many parks quietly permit long-term stays without strict enforcement, particularly outside tourist seasons. Arkansas consistently ranks among the 5 lowest cost of living states nationally. Groceries, fuel, and utilities cost less than U.S. averages, significantly impacting RVs who still face daily expenses despite eliminating rent. Gas prices typically run 20 to 40 cents per gallon lower than neighboring states, saving frequent travelers hundreds annually. Enforcement leniency in rural areas proves financially significant. Many towns lack resources or political pressure to aggressively police RV living on private property. Provided RVs remain invisible from main roads and generate no complaints, enforcement stays minimal. This creates unofficial RV zones without formal legal designation. The state does impose income tax, but for low-income or fixed-income residents, actual tax burden remains negligible. Combined with cheap land access, affordable camping, and reduced daily expenses, Arkansas enables RV living on extremely limited budgets. Total monthly costs can realistically stay under $1,000, including all housing, food, and fuel expenses. This makes Arkansas viable for retirees, disability recipients, or anyone living on fixed government benefits. The state isn't marketed toward RVs or promoted as nomad-friendly. Its economic reality simply allows survival-level living at costs unreachable in most other regions. RVs quietly gravitate here not for lifestyle appeal, but for financial necessity made sustainable through systematically low pricing across all essential categories. Mississippi holds America's lowest overall cost of living, directly translating into cheaper RV existence across every expense category. Campground fees, utilities, food, and services all cost less because underlying wages, land values, and property taxes remain consistently low statewide. RV parks offer monthly rates between $250 and $400, typically including water, sewer, and trash service. Rural areas feature informal arrangements with private landowners allowing RVs to park for $100 to $200 monthly, sometimes with electricity access through extension hookups. These arrangements operate commonly and face minimal interference from local authorities. Fuel prices rank among the nation's lowest, often sitting 30 to 50 cents per gallon below national averages. This significantly reduces travel costs for mobile RVs over annual timeframes. Grocery prices also trend lower, with staple items often costing 10 to 15% less than western or northeastern states. Regulatory enforcement remains minimal outside city limits. Mississippi doesn't aggressively regulate RV living in unincorporated areas, and zoning enforcement proves inconsistent across counties. Many lack formal RV restrictions on private land, making quiet long-term living legally feasible without constant pressure. The state does charge income tax, but the compressed overall cost structure keeps total monthly expenses extremely low. Retirees, remote workers, and fixed-income individuals can realistically maintain RV living for $700 to $1,200 monthly, covering all housing, food, and fuel. Mississippi doesn't advertise RV-friendly policies or court nomadic populations. Its economic reality simply makes it among America's least expensive places to exist, which naturally attracts RVs seeking survival-level affordability. The state functions quietly as a refuge for people displaced by housing costs elsewhere. Its appeal isn't lifestyle or scenery, but rather basic economic accessibility that allows continued existence on minimal income streams unavailable in higher-cost regions. New Mexico's affordability stems primarily from massive public land access. Millions of acres of Bureau of Land Management and National Forest land permit free dispersed camping for up to 14 days per location with minimal enforcement in remote areas. This access alone eliminates campground costs for much of the year through location rotation. Full-time RVs spend months paying nothing for land use, a situation unavailable in most eastern states, where public land remains scarce. Fuel and grocery prices register moderately, but absent rent or campground fees, monthly expenses drop dramatically. RVs practicing full-time boondocking report total costs between $600 and $1,000 monthly, depending on travel frequency and fuel consumption. New Mexico maintains cultural tolerance toward off-grid and alternative living arrangements. Rural counties often lack strict zoning enforcement, and many areas openly allow RVs on private land without permits or inspections. This creates unofficial communities operating under regulatory radar. Climate adds financial advantages often overlooked. Mild winters in southern regions reduce heating costs substantially, while dry conditions minimize moisture-related RV damage and maintenance expenses. Reduced corrosion and mold translate into lower long-term repair costs, a financially significant factor rarely discussed in affordability calculations. The state does impose income tax, but for low earners or retirees, the primary advantage remains that housing costs can drop to zero for extended periods through legal public land access. Many RVs describe New Mexico as a financial cheat code, not because laws changed, but because land itself remains publicly accessible. This fundamental difference from developed eastern states creates survival possibilities unavailable elsewhere. The state's value lies in what it still offers, rather than what it provides through programs. Public land access represents the largest housing subsidy available to Americans willing to live without traditional infrastructure, making New Mexico essential to national RV affordability discussions. Oklahoma's RV affordability emerges from cheap utilities and relaxed rural enforcement rather than flashy policies. Electricity rates consistently rank among the nation's lowest 10, often running 20 to 30% below national averages. For RVs operating air conditioning, heating, or internet services, this alone saves $50 to $100 monthly compared to higher-rate states. Monthly RV park rates in smaller towns range from $300 to $450, typically including electric, water, and sewer connections. Rural counties commonly permit private land parking with minimal regulation, especially outside city limits. Many counties simply lack manpower or incentive to enforce zoning against RVs on private property. Fuel prices remain consistently low, often 30 to 60 cents per gallon, below national averages. This significantly reduces travel costs for mobile RVs. Over 10,000 annual driving miles, that price difference saves $300 to $600 yearly. Insurance costs also trend lower than coastal states due to reduced repair costs and less congestion. This decreases one of the largest fixed expenses RVs face outside camping fees. Oklahoma does charge income tax, but overall monthly living costs for RVs often stay under $1,000 to $1,300, even with moderate travel frequency. The state doesn't advertise itself as RV-friendly or actively court nomadic populations. Its economic structure simply makes RV living quietly sustainable in ways more regulated states cannot match. Oklahoma's advantage lies in cumulative small savings across multiple categories rather than single dramatic policy benefits. Lower electricity, fuel, insurance, and camping costs combine to create meaningful monthly differences. Over annual timeframes, these savings can total thousands of dollars compared to higher-cost regions. The state functions as an under-recognized option for RVs prioritizing financial sustainability over scenic attractions or cultural amenities. Its quiet affordability makes long-term survival achievable on limited income streams. Texas is frequently misunderstood as expensive, but its scale creates RV affordability through market competition. Thousands of RV parks generate pricing competition that pushes monthly rates down outside tourist corridors. Non-urban areas commonly offer $350 to $550 monthly with full hookups included. Texas charges no state income tax, immediately lowering living costs for working RVs, retirees, and remote employees. This alone represents 5 to 10% more take-home income compared to states with income taxation. Rural counties often maintain relaxed zoning enforcement, especially on private land. Many RVs legally park on owned or leased property without permits, inspections, or occupancy restrictions. Some counties openly accept RVs as permanent housing with minimal oversight. Fuel prices consistently fall below national averages, and long distances between cities encourage vehicle-friendly infrastructure. This creates fewer access restrictions and greater tolerance of mobile living arrangements. Insurance, vehicle registration, and inspection costs remain moderate, while the state's massive economy keeps service and repair pricing relatively affordable. Many Texas RVs report total monthly living costs between $900 and $1,400, depending on travel patterns. Texas doesn't feel free because of specific laws, but because market forces allow RVs to exist cheaply through competition and scale. The sheer number of available parks prevents monopolistic pricing that emerges in smaller markets. Geographic diversity also matters. West Texas offers different affordability than East Texas, and coastal regions differ from panhandle areas. This variety allows RVs to relocate within state borders to find optimal cost structures without establishing new residency. The state's appeal lies in economic accessibility, created through market dynamics rather than government programs. Texas proves that in large, competitive markets, RV living remains financially viable for middle and lower income populations without requiring subsidies or special accommodations. Florida's RV affordability fluctuates seasonally, making timing essential to cost management. Peak winter months from December through March see monthly RV rates in popular areas reach $900 to $1,300, pricing out low-income residents. Once snowbirds depart, rates collapse dramatically. From April through October, identical parks frequently drop to $400 to $600 monthly, sometimes lower in inland regions. This creates situations where RVs moving seasonally or remaining off-peak cut housing costs by 50 to 60% through strategic timing alone. Florida charges no state income tax, significantly benefiting retirees, gig workers, and remote employees. For individuals earning $30,000 to $50,000 annually, this represents $1,500 to $3,500 yearly, kept instead of taxed, money directly offsetting campground fees. Infrastructure density proves financially significant. Florida maintains one of America's highest concentrations of RV parks, creating competition preventing permanent price increases outside tourist corridors. Northern and central Florida counties cost substantially less than coastal resort zones and maintain looser enforcement standards. County-level regulation varies widely. Some cities aggressively restrict RV living, but many inland counties permit extended stays or ignore long-term parking entirely unless complaints arise. This patchwork enforcement allows informed RVs to live cheaply without legal conflict. Florida also offers income opportunities pairing well with mobile life. Seasonal service jobs and temporary work enable some RVs to cover living costs during high-demand months. Florida isn't free, but when averaged across full years, strategic RVs often live for $1,000 to $1,300 monthly total, far below traditional rent. The state's seasonal nature requires flexibility, but rewards those willing to move with weather patterns. Understanding Florida's economic rhythms transforms it from expensive to accessible, proving that knowledge itself becomes a financial asset in RV living. Missouri's RV advantage lies in what it doesn't charge. The state maintains low administrative costs for registration, licensing, inspections, and taxation, quietly reducing long-term expenses most RVs overlook when comparing states. Vehicle registration fees remain modest, without excessive RV-specific penalties existing in higher regulation states. Over multiple years, this saves hundreds to thousands of dollars compared to states with elevated renewal fees or additional mobile home classifications. Monthly RV park rates in rural Missouri commonly range from $300 to $500, often including utilities. Small-town parks cater to workers, retirees, and long-term residents rather than short-term tourism, keeping prices stable year-round without seasonal spikes. Missouri also maintains low costs for food, fuel, and basic services. Grocery prices frequently run 10 to 15% below national averages, significant for RVs without bulk storage or large refrigeration capacity. Zoning enforcement remains inconsistent at county levels. Many counties either lack clear RV ordinances or don't actively enforce existing regulations on private land. Consequently, RVs frequently serve as long-term housing without permits or inspections in rural areas. Missouri does charge state income tax, but low earners and retirees often pay minimal amounts through deductions and exemptions. Combined with reduced living expenses, total RV budgets often fall between $800 and $1,200 monthly. Missouri doesn't attract attention or actively promote RV living, which proves advantageous. Lack of publicity prevents price inflation and regulatory tightening common in states marketed toward nomadic populations. The state's quiet affordability makes long-term survival achievable without constant relocation or legal conflict. Its advantage emerges from systematic low costs across multiple categories rather than single dramatic benefits, creating financial stability for RVs seeking predictable, sustainable budgets on limited income streams. Nevada's unique geography makes it among America's most boondocking-friendly states. Over 80% of Nevada consists of federally owned land, fundamentally changing RV living economics. Dispersed camping on Bureau of Land Management land remains legal for up to 14 days per location. After 14 days, RVs relocate short distances and continue staying legally. This permits months of living with zero campground fees, impossible in most states lacking extensive public land. Nevada charges no state income tax, directly benefiting full-time RVs earning income online or through seasonal work. Combined with free land access, this can reduce total monthly expenses dramatically compared to taxed states with limited public land. Rural enforcement remains minimal. Outside urban areas like Las Vegas and Reno, authorities rarely interfere with RVs practicing leave-no-trace behavior. This tolerance allows extended boondocking without frequent displacement or legal conflict. Fuel prices fluctuate but remain manageable, and dry desert conditions reduce moisture damage, mold, and corrosion. This lowers long-term RV maintenance costs, a factor rarely discussed but financially significant over years of continuous living. Many full-time boondockers in Nevada report total monthly expenses between $600 and $900, including food, fuel, and basic utilities. Housing costs effectively drop to zero through public land access. Nevada isn't cheap through policy announcements or government programs, but through continued land accessibility. This fundamental difference from developed eastern states creates survival possibilities unavailable elsewhere. The state's value lies in what remains publicly available rather than what government provides through services. For RVs willing to live without traditional infrastructure, Nevada represents among the last American regions where housing costs can truly disappear through legal means. Arizona offers America's most structured yet affordable RV system through its long-term visitor area program. RVs can legally camp on designated Bureau of Land Management land for up to 7 consecutive months annually. Total cost runs approximately $180 for the entire season, breaking down to under $26 monthly for legal land access. This represents among America's lowest housing costs, comparable to nothing available in traditional housing markets. These areas are designed specifically for RVs, featuring established roads, waste disposal options, and community norms reducing enforcement conflict. This creates predictability most boondocking states lack, where regulations remain unclear and enforcement unpredictable. Arizona's winter climate also reduces heating costs, potentially saving RVs hundreds of dollars per season compared to colder states requiring constant propane or electrical heating. Dry conditions further reduce maintenance expenses through decreased moisture damage. Outside long-term visitor areas, Arizona also permits widespread dispersed camping under standard 14-day rules, giving RVs flexibility year-round for free camping beyond designated zones. Arizona does charge state income tax, but near-zero housing cost offsets taxation for most low-income or fixed-income RVs. Many full-timers live on $700 to $1,000 monthly total, including all food, fuel, and incidental expenses. Arizona proves that when land access is structured instead of restricted, RV living becomes predictably cheap rather than legally risky. The permit system removes uncertainty while maintaining affordability. This structured approach attracts RVs seeking stability over adventure. Knowing exact costs and legal standing for 7 months provides financial security unavailable through informal boondocking, where enforcement can change unexpectedly. Arizona demonstrates that thoughtful government accommodation of RV living creates better outcomes than either prohibition or unregulated tolerance. This isn't a housing trend, it's a warning sign the system no longer works. If you've seen RV living spreading in your area, or you're living this reality yourself, tell us in the comments. Your experience matters. In our next video, we're breaking down where RV living is being pushed out and why some states are fighting back hard.